it. Welcome back to another edition of Cajun Classic Cars TV. We'll call this one Jesse and his Dodges Part 2. And so here we go. Jesse, tell us what Dodge we're looking at today.
Today we're looking at a 1935 KC Second Series.
KC Second Series. We'll find out what that's about coming up here on Cajun Classic Cars TV.
Abbeville, Louisiana is located in Vermilion Parish. Abbeville is 55 miles west of Baton Rouge and 120 miles west of New Orleans, just south of Lafayette in the Acadiana area of Louisiana. Abbeville is an agricultural trade and processing center for rice, sugar cane, and seafood, particularly crawfish, alligator, and crab. An Abbeville attraction is the large open kettle sugar cane syrup mill. Growing up down in South Louisiana, Mama always had a can of Steen's syrup around.
If you haven't experienced this thrill, visit the showroom of your local Dodge dealer. See for yourself the extra value you get in this big, new, money-saving Dodge. Believe me, folks, it certainly is more car for less money.
So, Jesse, this is the second 35 in your series that we're going to show. Tell us what's a bit different from of course, the other one was a panel van, so that makes a lot of difference. But outside of that, when Dodge made the particular pickup truck version, what's different than what we've seen before?
Okay, well, this is the half-ton pickup. And the difference with this one is, from 33, 34, 35, they had suicide doors for the first part of that year. And then they ran out of cabs, so they grabbed the 36 cab and put it on here, but it's an all steel cab. They got rid of the rag top and they put regular doors on that cab. The main thing was, when they put it on, they stretched the front end out about 8 inches to give a better ride. It's 115, that's 119 on the other one. So then the running boards didn't fit, so they had to get them off of a 33 Plymouth. So it's kind of they only built it for 6 months, and then in 36 they changed the front end and the back end.
It's almost like they went to the flea market and bought a bunch of stuff and let's put a truck together.
Yeah, well, I figured, I guess, when in the end of 35 they needed to still build some trucks, so they started using whatever they had in the inventory and put it together.
One of our episodes we filmed was a gentleman that has some 63 prototype Corvettes, and GM at the time was finding parts everywhere they could. We need a wire, and they'd go to the back of the warehouse and find one for an Impala, or they'd find one for a Malibu, and they were just piecemealing this together to get these things on the road.
Well, that was the whole thing with Dodges. If you look in the parts book, they'll have it break down by serial number because it won't be a year. They may have decided to change a part, and nope, let's change it. Well, now you got to try to figure out what series it got it on, you know?
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, so that's why we have a lot of problems, especially with the older ones, the 1930s and all that.
All right, Jesse, tell us a little bit about this truck and its history with you, man.
Okay, I was looking for a 53 Chevrolet. I've always a Chevrolet man before I was a Dodge. My wife saw this one in the paper in Lafayette for $500. It was a hot rod then. It was pretty bad shape, okay? But we got it. And about, I put a 318, sold a Hemi, put a 318 in it. And about 10 years later, I was at a show, and the president of the Dodge Club told me that this was a rare truck. And I looked it up, and it was, so I decided to restore it back, and that's when I got in the Dodge Brothers Club. So it's got the original engine. Went around the country finding all my original parts. Well, not the original parts, but for that year. And so I've got the original engines in it, transmission, rear end, brake, 3-speed transmission. Everything's the same.
All right, so Jesse, let's do another Cajun Classic Cars TV history lesson. The history between Ford and the Dodge brothers. Tell us about it.
Well, in 1902, Dodge was building engines for automobile. They were machinists, and they were doing that. Well, Ford in 1904 wanted to go back into business to start building the Fords. Well, he went to the Dodge brothers, and the Dodge brothers said, "We'll give you $10,000, but we're going to build your engines, the transmissions, and your rear ends, and we're going to keep 10% of your stock." So they started doing that. Ford, he came up with the assembly line and started putting it together and all that. Well, here's where the conflict is. Dodgers were always innovating, always wanted to do something else. Ford was totally against it. At the end of the shift, they'd put a keg of beer and drink beer. Ford was against that. So in 1914, he bought them out. $31 million.
Okay, so that's easily 300 million today.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they started building the Dodges. I know you do realize that the two Dodge brothers both died in 1920 of the Spanish flu. So their wives ran the company for another 4 years until 1928 when Chrysler bought them out. And Chrysler kept the Dodge going on Dodge Brothers till 1933. When they, well, 1938, I take that back, when they started sending them over to Germany, and because of the difference in the emblem, thinking it was the Star of David, that's why they did away with the Dodge Brothers.
See, I told you folks, every time you watch Cajun Classic Cars TV, you get a little bit of history. And that's an interesting story. I mean, they had to change sort of what they did because of the political environment going on. So Jesse, you seem like be the historian of Dodges, but there's a good reason for that. You are a member of a Dodge club, and you're the president?
A regional director.
Regional director of what club?
Of the Dodge Brothers International Club.
How many members are in the Dodge Brothers International? Just good guess.
There's about 1,200 of us.
Okay.
We have some in Australia, we have some in Europe, and all over the state. We have 5 regions here in the U.S. So we have the southern region down here. But the main region is around Detroit.
Okay.
That area.
Right. You mentioned something about Detroit. This vehicle here was in Detroit for a show, right?
Right. We had the 100-year centennial of Dodge Brothers, and we went to Detroit. We spent a week there driving around all New York. We went to the Piquet plant where the first 10,000 Model Ts were made at, because a lot of the Dodge Brothers members worked there as volunteers. They opened up the Chrysler Museum for us, so we were able to get in that. We had a big get-together on the last night where we all dressed up in period, and it was at the Matilda Dodge's mansion, was where we had it at. So it was pretty nice.
That is pretty cool, especially since earlier in the show you mentioned that the Dodge Brothers passed soon, but the family members kept and it's great that you were part of an event at one of the houses, you know, still named after a Dodge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, we had the great-grandson of Dodge was there with us. He's not doing so good money-wise anymore, but he has nothing to do with the company, but he was there to celebrate with us. And we were about 120 members, and we have a picture of all of us on the front lawn set up there, where we had all the cars set up and everything, so it was pretty nice. It was a very good event.
Let's take a look under the hood if we can, Jesse.
Okay, this has basically the same engine that one has a 201 in it. This one you got to put has a crank for the air conditioning, not like the other one. So you have to crank it in. Crank the air conditioning.
Well, on every old car or truck, depending on whether or not you're left or right-handed, when you try to move something, you start getting Popeye arms
Yeah.
from having to roll windows down or shift or whatever, right?
That's it. Yeah.
So you got a 201 in this one, Jesse.
Yeah, and this one is just bored out to 40,000s. Most of the time when you find these old engines, they're pitted or whatever. So a good friend of mine was a machinist here in Abbeville, and he's just retired. But he did the machine work on it, and I did the restoration, putting the engine back together. It's got the old all-fill air cleaners on them.
The oil bath breather.
Oil baths. You could probably set a cup of coffee on there, and it won't even spill it. That's how smooth it runs.
Well, you're lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a well-balanced engine on this one. The only problem I've had with this truck basically is it's got a little bit of a wobble, and I just put a stabilizer on the front axle. Just, you know, kind of get rid of it, because the kingpins are a little worn. After 20 years on Louisiana roads, you're going to wear them out. Original fenders are hard to come by. They're in bad shape because they rattle and they break. So we had as a club, we had a guy in California, Mike Norcutt, commissioned a guy to make 10 sets. So he made 10 sets at $1,200 a set. And this was the first set, and it fit perfect. It's metal. A lot of them you'll find people have fiberglass in them, but these are metal.
So Jesse, you talked about getting with the original, the car club people, and it's great when you know folks in the business, so to speak, the hobby, because we're able to connect and find a part that might be missing and this and that. But what did we do back in, let's say, 1980 when you got this guy? I mean, we had no Facebook.
Nope.
We had no internet.
Nope.
We might have gotten paper catalogs.
We had the not Haggard, but
Well, there was J.C. Whitney.
and you looked in there and you could find what. Then you had to snail mail everybody, because most of the time they didn't have a phone number. So sometimes they did.
Yeah.
Or you called them up, or you had to send them a mail. You know?
Yeah.
Now, luckily with the club, we came up with a list of people that had parts.
Right.
And we could go to them and say, okay, write them a letter. 2 weeks later, you get back, y'all want it. By the time you write them back, it's gone. You know?
Exactly.
But-
Exactly. Well, you know, like I say, growing up, we had no Facebook, we had no marketplace, we had no eBay.
No.
It's amazing that we even survived. But yeah, so we, you know, like I say, for cars, we had J.C. Whitney and some others, and for the outhouse, we had the Sears catalog.
That's right. That's right.
So you were telling me off camera about this tailgate.
The tailgate normally for the 35 is ugly. I mean, it's just a car, it's just opened up metal right here. It doesn't have this on it. It's just stripped down all the way apart. So this is open, and it's an ugly tailgate. And so I kind of did a engineering on it, and I grabbed the 54 and cut it out, and then welded it back on here and put it on here because I think it looks a lot better.
So tell me the story about the wood and the bed on this
Okay.
one.
Well, the bed is actually a metal bed underneath it. It's solid metal, but I like the wood, you know, looking here. Well, the wood, my neighbor was tearing down a barn that was built in 1890. And so that's old oak that you see around here. And when you look at it, it's got a lot of grain to it. So I was able to help him tear that down, and I kept a lot of the oak, and that's where I put it out here.
So this is almost like part of Louisiana history, not only because it's been, you know, you've been working on it in the state. This wood was grown from the land of the Bayou State,
That's it.
which just makes the story even more interesting, I think.
That's it. I wanted something, and I like that wood. It's pretty wood. I work with wood too, so I do a lot of carpenter work. Built my own home, you know, and I built most of the furniture in my house, so I was able to put my expertise into this right here.
All right, so I'm intrigued, Jesse, with these license plates. Tell me the story about the plates here in your
Well-
Dodge pickup.
My wife and I, Gwen, have traveled all 50 states, and we used to go to a lot of flea markets, and I'd see plates and stuff, and I had this 35, and I said, you know, I started picking them up. Well, eventually I had a major collection of them, so when I restored this one, I said I need to show them somewhere, not just leave them up in a room where nobody sees them. So I built this thing right here and put them in here. Now I've got all 48 states I have, and at that time Alaska and Hawaii were territories. So I do also have Hawaii as a territory, and I also have the District of Columbia. So I have all of them except Alaska, which is very expensive.
Well, I told you I've got connections in Alaska, but we're trying. But you tried to find the Alaska plate, $2,800.
Yeah.
Yes, some people's cars don't even cost $2,800 bucks.
No.
Used car.
The hardest one to find here in the States, believe it or not, was Arkansas.
Is that right?
I guess they didn't have that many cars and trucks in 1935.
1935. So tell me about the. I like the toolbox, man. Or it could,
Yeah.
I guess it could work for a beer ice chest too if you
You
wanted.
could do that too. I needed to have something to put storage in, so I just built the box out of the wood that I had. Used both hinges, and it works pretty good for storing all my oils and stuff when I'm traveling. All right, Brian, we're gonna go ahead and get in this one. I'll open it up. This one's got regular doors on it. Put the windows down, get a little air in here. Oh. There we go. Yeah, this one's got the regular interior in it. If you see, there's a company in California that makes it, that all board, cardboard with a hole, I guess, whatever. And the only thing I've done to this one is at the time I didn't have gauges when I restored this one. You couldn't find anybody to restore. So I upgraded the gauges to 12 volts. And a friend of mine in Picayune made the plates for me. We added the turn signal, so we had turn signal plates. That's my little bit of hot rod in me. This one's got the heater in it.
Which is basically your motor.
Yeah, well, no, it's a regular
You got a
heater.
heater core?
Hey, look, you can see it down there. It's actually got the heater with the little doors. You just open the little doors. It's got the fan. It runs and everything. Of course, you don't need it because the heat is coming in through that engine, so it's doesn't get that cold down here. So why don't we crank this one up? You want to hear it?
Let's do it.
This one runs pretty good. Let's see. Oh, that's not working. That's not gonna work. Come on, you're gonna start doing that? And then, Yeah, this is the air conditioner on this one. On the 36 cab, with 35 seconds here in cab, they got a crank out windshield. So it just takes a little bit of force.
I like the leather straps for the handles.
Yeah,
Is that original to the car? Or you did that?
That's something I did because I don't like grabbing on the window, you know. So I wanted something that I could grab. I think those are off of AMG, if I'm not mistaken. See, like in 1980 when I redid this one, there wasn't a whole bunch of ports that you could find, so you had to use whatever you could find.
Jesse, thank you so much for your hospitality and also your service to our country. We mentioned earlier, you guys didn't catch the beginning of our episodes, but your background is, of course, aviation mechanic,
Yep.
and you spent some time in Vietnam, a lot of helicopter stuff, right?
Yeah, right. I was in helicopters on Hueys in Vietnam. Made it back.
Thank goodness.
Married that wife of mine 11 days before I left the country.
Wow. And you guys have been together for how long?
54 years.
54 years, and you barely look over 54.
Well, I'm 73.
Wow. Does not look 73, ladies and gentlemen. You've got great energy, and we appreciate it. And thank you guys for watching. Be sure to check out our sponsor, VicariAuction.com, and of course our website, and share with your friends. We're at CajunClassicCarsTV.com, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. Check us out and share our content.
Softly cool.